Where boots hit the deck, stories take flight. Welcome to the Barracks Life, a podcast that brings you authentic stories from the men and women who've walked the path of military service. Did you know that hull technicians are often called the ship's surgeons? These skilled technicians are responsible for maintaining the structural integrity of naval vessels through expert welding, pipe fitting, and metalwork. Essentially, keeping our ships watertight and battle ready for the high seas. I'm your host, Khit Lovan, and today we're honored to have former Petty Officer Second Class Adam Nuncio sharing his unique journey with us. You know, Adam, one thing I've learned doing this podcast is that every path of service starts somewhere completely different. Before diving into your Navy days, hope the listeners get to know the person behind the uniform. Where did you grow up, and what was life before you joined the service?
Well, hi, Git. Thanks for having me here this afternoon, and pleasure to be here and talk about my experience. Well, I was born in Texas, raised there till I was about 12, and my father brought us out here to California, which probably was one of the best moves we could make. It was flourishing at that time, and so it was a good environment for me to flourish. But towards my high school years, I kind of hit rock bottom, got involved real early with alcohol and drugs, and by the time I graduated, I had absolutely no purpose or a direction in life at all. So I packed up a backpack and hitchhiked from San Diego to Canada.
No,
well, awesome. I had sold this whole heap of a car that I had, and I made $35 off of it. And with that $35, I stayed gone for about 3 months up in the Pacific Northwest. Was turned away at the border, at the Canadian border, because you needed $200 cash. And like I said, I only had 35, so most of my time I spent hitchhiking around Oregon. So right around September, it started getting kind of cold. It started to rain a little bit, so I figured, I got to go back to San Diego. And we used to have an old saying that said, there's only 2 things to do in San Diego, and that's go to the zoo and join the Navy. So I had already been to the zoo. And so I figured, well, and I had an older brother that had been that had joined the Navy a year prior to myself. And every time I saw him, man, he had these little war stories and, Westpac stories and stuff. And I'm going like, well, that's the life, the pirate's life for me, So anyway, long story short, I came home and joined the military, joined the Navy, and did boot camp right here in San Diego.
Wow.
It was great because, I could almost look down the road and see my house. I was living pretty close to downtown at the time. And I thought, maybe because it got kind of rough halfway through. It got kind of rough. And I started thinking, man, if I just jump this fence, I could be home in about 10 minutes. But I realized that wasn't an option. And truth be told, that was the best decision I think I've ever made in my life. Like I said, I was very undisciplined, no purpose. And so I realized that this gave me a purpose and a reason to kind of get up in the morning.
Awesome. That's a crazy story. I mean, you hitchhiked all the way
Yeah. It was actually fun.
Yeah?
It was a lot of fun.
And what year was that?
That would have been 79. No, I'm sorry. No, I went in 74. So yeah, that would have been right after high school. So 74.
Wow. Times were probably a lot different back then.
Oh yeah.
Like what was going on in the country itself, and also probably the military service was way different.
Yeah, very different.
I mean, for my time, because I got in 2013.
Oh no,
So,
a
a lot of things have changed since then.
A lot of things, yeah, absolutely. I still, I talk to young enlisted persons like yourself, and the difference is night and day. Absolutely night and day.
Yeah. So let me ask you a question: why the Navy?
Well, number one, like I said, my older brother's example. He was enjoying it. He was having a good time, and always had a wad of cash in his pocket, and that was the direct opposite of who I was. And I knew I didn't want to do the Marines. That was just kind of like, nah. No disrespect to my Marine brothers and sisters, but just seemed like the one. And and being in San Diego, you're right here, man. So it's like that's the one to be.
I mean, I remember because I had my choice, right, to join either the Navy. Well, I talked to the Army, but I also talked to the Navy. But as soon as I stepped into the Marine office, that's where I went. And I don't regret it by any means, but the Navy did seem like it had a lot more money. To be honest, because they offered, when I joined it, they were offering for a certain job, I think $80,000 for a sign-on bonus.
Wow.
Yeah. So, but I turned it down because I wasn't joining the military for money at that time. I was joining for other reasons. So I know you talked about your brother kind of influenced you. But was there anything else that you can think about, like a family member or a movie or anything that influenced you to join the
No,
military?
nothing in the media. No, like I said, it was absolutely 100%. I think my brother and you know, I had been around. If you're in San Diego, you're always
Mm.
interacting with sailors, you know,
Mhm.
and so I had been around them all the time. I mean, you've got the disgruntled ones, obviously the FTNers, you know, but I think overall they were happy with their life.
Yeah, cool. So when you stepped on the boat, or did you do sea time? Was it kind of like a sea time
You know,
shore dory
actually,
thing
I
for you
was on
guys?
submarine tenders my whole
Oh,
time. Yeah. So, for those of you that don't know, you know what a submarine tender is, like a floating factory.
yeah.
And so, right out of boot camp, my brother and I, he joined about the same time as I did, and we both got stationed in Italy, Sardinia, Italy, the big island.
Yeah.
And boy, what an experience that was, man! I mean, it was considered isolation duty, right?
Uh-huh.
And it was just this little village called Palau. And in the middle of the bay there was a rock. I mean, a literal rock.
Mhm.
And the government had built a pier there where the ship would tie up and then the submarines would come alongside. And we called it the Rock. You know, you had to take a Liberty boat from the village to the ship every morning. And so we got stationed there, and I never really did sea time. We'd go out a couple weeks a year to do quals to make sure everything worked and everything. But as far as sea time, I never really did any sea time. So that was kind of a plus, you know, and I enjoyed working on the submarines. That was kind of exciting. You know, I don't know how those guys do it. Hats off to my bubblehead brothers, because I mean, it's
Yeah,
tough. It's
submarines
tough.
is a whole different life.
It really is, man.
It's a very special type of person that's in the
Oh,
submarine.
yep. I was just going to say. First of all, I think you have to have an aversion to fresh air and sunshine.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's one of the qualifications. And so I really like that aspect of it. Loved being in Italy, being stationed, obviously, there. Italians hated us. They hated us there because we were working on nuke subs and stuff, so they thought we were killing them. But otherwise, it was a great experience. So I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun over there.
Yeah.
And then when I came back to San Diego, after my tour over there was done, I was at the Dixon on in Point Loma.
Mhm.
And that was also a submarine tender. So
Wow.
that's really kind of been my experience. It was more like working at a factory. You'd go in every day and, you know, you'd do your job and then go home at night, do pulls of duty every 6 days. And, you know.
That's awesome. That's very, very different and interesting. I mean, not a lot of people would say they've ever seen a sub, let
Yeah.
alone you got to actually repair them and build
Every
them
day,
and
down
inside
there.
and out. And
Yeah. Nuclear reactors in the reactor. One day I received my yearly dosage in about 15 minutes. So I was disqualified.
I mean, that's not something to be
No,
to brag about.
I didn't glow for about 2 weeks, or I stopped glowing after about 2 weeks. Yeah.
Wow. That's interesting. That's fun. I mean, I don't want to say that's funny.
No,
but
it's funny. And I just happened to look down at my little barometer or whatever they call those, I forget, radiometer or whatever it was. And
Mhm.
I just happened to look at it and I go, wait a minute, this can't be. It's already on the red, you know? So,
Wow.
yeah.
Let's backtrack a little bit to boot camp, because I know I have countless stories of good, bad, indifferent, hilarious. I mean, I'm sure all of us who've experienced boot camp could write a book
Yeah.
if we had the skills to. So I want to kind of backtrack to your time in boot camp, because you said you did boot camp here in San Diego?
Yeah, NTC before it
Yeah.
became Liberty Station. Yeah.
Because now they do boot camp, I think, for the Navy.
Great Lakes.
Yeah. Somewhere
Great
else.
Lakes.
Yeah. So
Yeah. Crazy, right?
yeah. Let's backtrack to boot camp a little bit. Is there a moment right now that's just coming to your head that's either funny, sad, indifferent, a way that pushed you through with newly formed brothers? I have a bunch. I know. So I know you do.
Well, I think for me, the whole you could pretty much wrap it all up by saying it was a way of breaking you down and conforming to the standards that the military has, and in this case, the Navy. If one guy screwed up, everybody had to do 100 push-ups.
That mass
You know,
punishment style.
oh man, you know, it's like, and over the littlest details, I got gigged for. I think my socks were rolled the wrong way or something
Yeah.
like that, and it's like, oh
That
man,
attention
really?
to detail.
Yeah, and in retrospect, you look back and go like, well, that's the difference between a ship sinking and a ship floating. You know,
Yep.
yeah. Did you fold your socks right? Did you tighten that lug nut? Did you dog that door? You know, when they make, you know, X, Y, and Z zebra settings, you know, throughout the ship, you have to lock certain doors, dog certain doors down. And, you know, it might seem trivial, but at the same time, that's the difference between sinking and swimming and floating.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think for me, it was that whole camaraderie, man. That if we do well, you get a little praise or whatever the reward was. Isn't much. There isn't much reward in boot camp, if you know that. I mean, maybe extra chow portion or something, but but
You got extra chow?
yeah, and I had 15 minutes to eat it too. That was a killer right there. 15 minutes to get in there, eat, get back
Yeah.
out on the tarmac, and get ready to march. But I think that whole sense of camaraderie, that whole sense of, like I said, I had no discipline, absolutely no discipline in my life. My parents were kind of, I don't want to say absentee, but they figured, hey, this guy will raise himself up, and unless he gets into real trouble, we're not going to tell him what to do. And that was pretty much how I was raised. I had a lot of freedom in my life. I came and went as I pleased at a very early age. And so that whole discipline thing, I think it was, and it's still to this day, I kind of, I still have it. I tend to gravitate more to the lax side, but there is, I would have no discipline if it wasn't for the military. So that aspect of it, the camaraderie, the discipline, I thought that was, it was a game changer for me. It was an absolutely game changer for me. And I don't want to choke up right now. Just the whole love of country, I was raised in the '60s, so it was very, radical times. War against Vietnam, and so it was a very radical time to be. It was unpopular to be patriotic, and I bought into that. I bought into that whole, America's the worst and down with America and all that stuff. When I joined the military, I saw that aspect of, being patriotic and standing for your country and pride in your country and all that. So that was a game changer. Absolutely.
Yeah, boot camp has a special way. I'm sure every branch has their own methodology behind it, but ultimately, like you said, it breaks you down because we have, as normal civilians, we have bad habits or ways of thinking that are not aligned with the standards of the military. And yeah, they break you all the way down to the very, very, till you're nothing because it's not about you
You're
anymore.
a boot.
Yeah, it's
You're
not
a
about
boot.
you. You're boot. You're bigger things that really matter. And I'm glad you brought up that patriotism because it seems like nowadays, I mean, it's almost July 4th coming up.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are just, the patriotism has kind of dwindled in this
Absolutely.
country. So we're kind of going back and forth with this thing because you said it happened in the 60s and here we are 2025 doing
All
it again.
over again. Absolutely.
And yeah, likewise for me too, like I kind of grew up similar to you. No rules. I did whatever I wanted to, whenever I wanted, like whenever, whatever. And no one stood in my way. I
Yep.
mean, when people did stand in my way, I would just beat them out of it, basically. And that military definitely broke me down and gave me that camaraderie that sticks with you for a lifetime. It seems like. I mean, I hope it sticks to me.
With you, yeah.
But yeah, it's a love-hate relationship, though.
It really is. It really is. And you're touching on something there, the whole accountability thing. When I came back from hitchhiking for 3 months, my mom didn't even ask me where I was.
Yeah.
It was like, it wasn't like where you been. You never wrote or never called. That's the freedom that I had to come and go. But in the military, in the Navy, I became aware of this thing called accountability. That everything I did affected everybody on that ship. And vice versa, right? So we were all accountable to each other. The things we're talking about here are characteristics, right?
Yeah.
Patriotism, accountability, discipline, all those things that you can't learn in college. You can't learn in a classroom. You can learn it out on the street in life, maybe, if you're lucky, right? But I think when you're in that mindset of being a unit, being a thing called the Navy, you learn it, how can I say, you learn it in real time. Touching on the aspect of accountability, the whole chain of command, right? The whole chain of command. You don't just do what you want because this guy, you don't like what he told you to do, Well, I'm going to go do something different. So you're assuming and hoping that the guy that's above you, quote unquote, is giving you a valid order, right? He's not asking you to do something illegal or something that's going to endanger the ship. So that whole chain of command thing, I really, really respect that because I think it's missing in society, right? People kind of tend to, regardless of whether they're work for the, a corporation or school or whatever, that they kind of do what they feel is right.
Yeah.
And so not only I'm not going to be accountable to you, but even though you're my superior, regardless of, because of your title, then I'm not going to obey you. I'm not going to listen to what you said because I think I know better what to do.
Mhm.
So yeah, that whole aspect of accountability, chain of command, all those things. Yeah.
Just trusting in the above and below you and then you also have the accountability to
Right.
do your part because you're part of a bigger machine now.
Yeah, you are.
And it's just when I realized that, it was like, whoa, I'm representing something other than myself now. Everywhere you go, no matter what, I will get the title Marine attached to my name.
Yeah, Khit, you just dialed it in, bro.
Yeah.
That's it right there.
For me personally, I'm not going to disrespect that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Well, I mean, and if you decided to, there's consequences, right?
Yeah.
If you decided to disobey a lawful order, then there was consequences. And again, you don't see that in society. I mean, look, you've got people getting locked up and they turn around within the hour and they're back on the street. And, there's no accountability in that sense. There's no accountability of not fulfilling the law, but actually breaking the law. Yeah, absolutely. You pretty much summed it up right there. You're a part of something bigger than yourself, right? And it's humbling, but not in the derogatory sense. It's humbling that, wow, there's something out there besides me, 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 me. Yeah, absolutely.
Now, I know you said that you grew up in the 60s and the Vietnam War was kind of happening. Not kind of. It was for sure happening at that time.
Yeah, it was.
How'd your parents take the fact that you were joining the military? Since it was an unpopular
I
position?
think they weren't political, so I think in their mind was good. He's getting a job.
I don't have to feed him.
Yeah,
anymore.
I don't have to feed him anymore. Let the government take care of him. So no, I think they were actually happy because, I mean, like I said, my older brother had gone in, and then my brother and I went in within months of each other, and my younger brother was in the Army. So we kind of were, without thinking about it, we were a military family. And so I think it was absolutely normal for her, because they were divorced and my dad had died by then. It was kind of a normal thing, right? This is what you do. I mean, we were kind of middle class, maybe even lower middle class. So I never thought about going to college. I never even I never even thought that was a possibility, both financially and I didn't even know how to go down and register for that. So I think it was just kind of a natural groove to join the military. Yeah.
So after boot camp, we finally hit the fleet, right? So as a fellow wrench turner myself, working on CH-53s, was what you had envisioned what the fleet was going to be like actually what it was? Or was it completely different?
Completely different. Completely different.
Yeah.
Let me talk a bit about, that was a very, very cool description of the HD rate that you started the show with. I got talked into that, man. You know how recruiters are, right? So I go down there and I said, he says, okay, well, what do you want to be? And I said, I want to be a photographer's mate. And he goes, oh, no, you don't, man. There's no, it's really slow promotion. You'll never make rate, da, 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 da. So I said, he goes, what else? What else? Second choice. Well, I want to be a journalist because I like writing and I feel like I'm a good writer. And he says, no, you don't want to do that, man. Same thing. And, and I go, well, tell me what I want to be. Why don't you tell me what I want to be?
That was the right question.
And at that time, there was a big push for HTs. They had just, for the old timers out there that might be listening, it was the old D seamen and ship fitters. The ship fitters and D seamen got combined and then called it a hull tech, right? So you had the welder aspect and you had the damage control aspect to the rate. So yeah, once I hit the fleet, it was totally different. It was, I don't know. I liked it. I thought it was cool. I thought, everybody was doing their job but at the same time, it was fun. You were making friends, you were hanging out after work or whatever. Even during work, you had, some close friends. And so I made a lot of friends there, and it was a life-changing thing for me in that respect. But the HT rate, yeah, it was totally different. It felt very industrial to me, because like I said, it was a factory. I thought for sure we'd be sailing a lot more. We didn't. I didn't know what I was getting into because obviously they were putting you where they thought they needed you kind of thing. And so I don't know that I would have signed up for a submarine tender. But later on, it was kind of nice because I started raising a family, and so I was home pretty much all the time, and wasn't looking at 6, 7 months of sea duty, So that was kind of cool, being home every night.
Cool. That's cool that you guys got to. You didn't do any sea duty, because every person I talked to in the Navy is like, sea duty is the worst.
It's the worst.
I only know one person that's like, I like sea duty, but I think he didn't like his family or something.
I was
I'm
gonna
just
say,
kidding.
After I realized that, hey, you know what? We're only going out and when we'd go out, for example, when I was in Europe, the 2-week qualification time, we went out and, we went to Africa, we went to Spain. So it was kind of almost like a sea cruise, And then here in San Diego, we'd go down to Acapulco, and so they were kind of cool little trips, and
Yeah.
and it was good for us, or for me rather, in that since there were no subs to tend to, I didn't have anything to do underway, so it was a
Nice.
lot of hanging out, a lot of hanging out and a lot of eating.
So you say you raised a family, right?
Mhm.
How was juggling service life and family life? I know you got to see every day and you didn't go on like a long deployment or
Right.
anything like that. Did they take that role as being a military family lightly?
No, that's a great question. It was like normal. That was our life. There was no separation of being in the Navy and being a family man, because all our friends were in the Navy
Mm.
and they were all raising family. We were all the same age group, and they were all starting to raise families. So that's who we hung out with. And if I can add this as part of the program, I'm a Christian, and that's where I got saved, was in the Navy.
Mm.
Most of the people all the people that I hung out with were not only sailors, but we were Christians. We were all Christians, went to the same church. And so that was a real small, tight group of friends and family. And so there wasn't really a distinction between, okay, I'm going to take off my uniform and then put on my civvies, and now I'm not that guy. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? And like I said, the wives were all Navy wives, and they all talk the same lingo. Yeah, my husband's got the dirty dudes this weekend. And so we all talk. And when you said those things, everybody understood what you were saying. So they were very much and they, by they I mean the other people, were very much a part of being in the Navy just as much as we were. I don't think you can separate the two, really. There was no resentment, there was no resentment like, oh man, you got to do this, you got to do that. There was none of that. So it was very smooth transition from civilian life to Navy life, and, raising a family. Yeah.
That's very different. I'm glad you had a very positive experience
Yeah.
with it, because I've heard and kind of experienced it with my friends as well, that it's very tough. But I also think that's because you were in a community of like-minded, faithful people.
Right.
And if you don't mind me asking, how did you get introduced to Christianity? How did your faith start?
Well, like I said before, I got caught up in alcohol and drugs very early, and it didn't stop when I joined the military.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I think it almost increased because now I had money.
You had money.
And so there was a group of believers on board the ship here in San Diego, and man, they were like heavy into evangelizing, man, and everybody avoided them like the plague. Oh, there's a Jesus freaks, and they had their own table in the chow hall, and nobody. So one day I went in, with my tray, and I'm getting ready to eat chow, and the only seat available in the whole chow hall was at the Jesus freak table. So I sat down, and I didn't want to offend anybody, so I bowed my head like I was saying grace, and I wasn't. I was just kind of going through the motions, and oh man, that totally opened the door.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, they explained everything really well to me, and so I accepted the Lord right there on that ship, and that absolutely, back to your point about knowing people that hated being in the military. I mean, I knew those people too, and I think it's regardless of whether you're a Christian or not, it still comes down to attitude, right? I
Mhm.
mean, I was looking at it's kind of like if I had to go do time,
Yeah.
I would think like, okay, I'm doing 20, I might as well get used to it,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, and
Might
not
as well
fight
have
the
a
system.
positive outlook on it.
Exactly, you have to, man, because that's where you're at. So being in the Navy, I knew when my EAOS was up, I pretty much decided I was going to get out, especially since I had started raising a family, unless they had offered me something really cool, but they didn't. So yeah, it's the attitude of, well, this is my job and this is what I do, and if I want to buck the system, I'm gonna hate the Navy. I'm gonna hate everybody around me, and that's just not the way I wanted to be. Regardless of, I mean, even before I got saved. So it was like, accept where you're at, and I think that applies to wherever. I mean, wherever you're at right now. If you don't like your job, you have the freedom to get up and leave. If you don't like, wherever the city you live in, then get up and leave. But when you're in the Navy, you're under contract and there's no way out unless you want to get really heavy duty. And I didn't want to do that. So I think a lot of it was just attitude. You have to have the perfect attitude. I was looking at the benefits I was getting out of being there. In other words, I was drawing a paycheck, right? It wasn't much, but I was drawing a paycheck, and I had full medical and dental and all that stuff. So I had benefits that none of my friends that didn't go in the military had. And then I started thinking, when I get out, I've got school benefits, and we've bought 2 homes with my GI and stuff. So I was looking long term, how is this going to pay off? And, I might as well, get in the driver's seat, sit down and relax and cruise through this thing. Yeah.
It's super interesting that you say that because you were thinking like that while you were in the Navy, but prior to that, you weren't a person. You didn't seem like a person that didn't think things through.
Oh,
before.
no. Super impulsive.
Yeah. So
Super impulsive.
was there something that clicked for you that made you start thinking like that?
You mean after I joined or
just in general? You came from a person that didn't think about next week to a person that was thinking long term now.
Well, I think with what I mentioned earlier, I think it's that sense of purpose.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? I mean, you'd muster in the morning and, okay, here's the plan of the day. So right immediately, the minute you get there, you've got structure.
Structure,
right?
Yeah.
There's somebody that wants to know that you're there. Not in New York now, or maybe hitchhike across Europe, because that's where I was headed before I went up to Canada. I was going to go to Europe. So there's structure, there's muster. If somebody wants to know you're there. Secondly, there's somebody telling you, okay, this is what we're doing today, the plan of the day, even down to the uniform of the day, right? This is what you're wearing today. And for some, that could be restrictive. That could be like, oh, man, you can't tell me what to do. And at that time, I don't know how it was when you were in, but you even had to put in a chit to grow a beard.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like, really, I can't grow facial hair until I asked my commanding officer? Come on, man. So for some people, that would be like, oh, I hate this. This is what I hate. I hate being restricted. Well, try being in jail, or try going to work, a job that pays minimum wage and the boss is a tyrant. It's the same thing. So you have that aspect, and then the plan of the day, uniform of the day, here's what we're doing. So that whole sense of purpose, And then again, what we talked about a minute ago, the accountability factor. So not only do I have a goal for today, but I've also got somebody at the end of the day going, did you get done?
Mm-hmm.
And why not? Whereas before it was like, I'll do what I want. I mean, come on. I mean, I was literally living in the woods by a river for 2 weeks at a time, not doing anything. So yeah, I think that's what changed it for me was that structure.
Reorganizing your
brain cells.
Basically, and just like put it in categories. Now that's just the way it is now.
Yeah, and then you have your individuals who reject that or resent that oh, somebody's telling me what to do, somebody's telling me how to dress, and I think that carries over from that, at least in my experience, from with that whole '60s lifestyle, tune in, turn on, drop out, so it was that whole '60s lifestyle of don't let anybody tell you what to do, especially the man, right? Everybody, we gotta not listen to the man. And so that was, I think that's what it was for me, was that whole sense of structure. Like, okay, this is cool. This is cool. I have to fold my clothes a certain way, and my boots have to be super polished and all that, and so all that stuff. I think that combined to changing my attitude towards where I was.
Like you said, a lot of people do take it the wrong way. The structure, it also goes the other way too. I mean, it's just like you said, your attitude on it, right? How do you look at it, and how can you take it, and just what can you grow from it?
Because think about it, we have structure everywhere, right? Whether you realize it or not. If you want to drive 95, go for it, bro. Right? But there's accountability. There's the consequences for that. If you want to rob a bank, man, go do it. So there's structure all around us. You have to show up for work at 9 o'clock or whatever it is the time you have to show up, and you have to stay till whatever time, and you have to do this. So structure exists everywhere, and there's buildings full of people who decided not to live within those structures, and they're called jail. They're going to do what they want to do when they want to do it, and keep going until somebody catches them or whatever. And now somebody's still telling them what to do, right? You only get 2 showers a week, bro. I'm sorry. You only get 1 hour outside. I'm sorry. So it's like, you got to choose. You got to choose, obviously, what boundaries you're going to accept in your life, right? Obviously, we don't want to be slaves. We don't want to be serfs. So you have to choose those structures and say, I'm going to live within these parameters. If you think that that's not for you, like I said a minute ago, then move. Right? Move to another city, another town, another country. There's always options. I believe in this life, there's always options. Even in the Navy, I mean, you still had the option to disobey a lawful order, but you knew what was going to come from that. So, yeah, absolutely. The people that are choosing not to abide by the parameters of that structure are what we called, prisoners.
Yeah. Yeah. So before we get into your present day life, was there anybody in the military in your 5 years you were in, 5 years, that you think about today that you miss or that has influenced you in some kind of way?
Not one person specific. I think, again, it was the whole experience. My boot camp instructor, Chief de Guzman. Oh, that guy was brutal, man. That guy was brutal. Even got reprimanded when we were getting ready to graduate.
Wow. He was that kind of brutal.
We were practicing marching in front of the dignitaries that were going to supposedly be there. And at one point, he pulled this guy out. We were in formation. And he pulled this guy out because somebody farted and we all started laughing. And so he pulled this guy out.
No discipline.
Pulled this guy out of formation and said, "Give me 100." And he put his foot on his back as he's doing the push-ups, and the guy that's up on the podium, he says, Chief de Guzman, we don't do that over here. So on this side because there was 2 sides of boot camp.
You're on the wrong side.
He said, we don't do that over here. So reprimand him later kind of thing. And that guy kind of stood out because he was a feisty little dude, man. He was a feisty little dude. And that was his job, man, right? His job was to take a bunch of losers because that's what we were, man. When we got off the bus, we were up in L.A., right, swearing in. And so we get on the bus and we're coming back down to San Diego, and the bus driver says, does anybody want me to stop at Jack in the Box or something, get something to eat? And everybody's like, nah. And he goes, well, it's a charter bus, so you can drink on board. Do you want me to stop at a liquor store? And we're like, yeah. So when we pulled into NTC, man, we were all like 3 sheets into the wind. Yeah. So here's Chief de Guzman. His job is to straighten these guys out and make them, AJ squared away. I don't envy that guy at all. So, yeah, I think it was just the whole thing in general. Yeah, it wasn't one particular person. It was the whole thing in general.
That's awesome. It seems like now, I mean, that's good that you have an outlook on that, how you saw the bigger picture and kind of just took the full message of the military and kind of morphed it and turned it into your own and in a positive way. I know a lot of my brothers, Marines, that are just affected negatively because of certain individuals or even just holding grudges or even just, losing friends or something like that.
Yeah.
They carry on to this day, and I'm glad you don't have any of those negative outlooks.
Well, I'm not going to say it was, I mean, there was some guys that were, I'm Latino, and there was some racism on board the ship. There was no doubt about that. But for me, it was like, that's been my life experience. So I shouldn't expect anything different here. So yeah, it wasn't all like roses and I'd love to do another 50 years, Yeah, there was some racism there. I think that was the one negative part, that it wasn't like heavy duty, but it was there. It was there. And again, we're talking about the 70s, I think things hopefully have changed a lot.
I'm sure they have.
Hopefully, right?
It seems like, those early times of your life and the military has really shaped you. And it's really incredible how something happened decades ago can still influence you today, right? So yeah, speaking of today, it's been a long journey for you. You got out of the Navy in 79, right? It's 2025 now. What are some meaningful things that you continue to do? And what kind of journey has that been since 79 till
Since
now?
I got out? Oh, it's been amazing. It's been an amazing journey. Got out, and first thing I did was register for college. by that time, I was really kind of like hungry for knowledge. I wanted to learn, and so signed up for Mesa College and GI Bill. That time, Mesa was free. Community colleges were free, and I
Mm.
think I was getting like $500 a month from my GI Bill, and that was more than enough money to live in San Diego at
Mhm.
that time. And so became a full-time student. Friend of mine turned me on to a couple of residents that he was doing some landscaping on, and so I started a landscaping company and built that up and sold that. Gosh, let's see what else. Worked in the shipyards for 10 years. I got married, got divorced, raised 2 kids. I'm currently married to my beautiful wife, Bernadette, who's standing right here next to me. And
Mhm.
she put in 30 years at the VA helping vets out. And so there's always been kind of I don't want to say a connection, but there's like a relationship. And it's hard not to do in a town like San Diego. Like I said, even though the military presence has dwindled, I mean, you go to 32nd Street and it's almost empty. I mean, back in the day, it was like a parking lot of ships.
Mm.
And so this town has a relationship with the military that's always had. Started a business, like I said, worked in the shipyards, decided, hey, man, I'm going to, this is not the life for me. So quit that and immediately registered at San Diego State, got my teaching degree and taught high school for 10 years, for 20 years rather. And now that we're both retired, my wife and I, we spend a lot of time together, travel a lot. We just got
Mm.
back from Poland, which was an amazing eye opener because, those poor people have just been out of communism since '89. So it's been just a short time that they're experiencing any kind of freedom. You could feel it. You could feel the joy of, I mean, because there's people walking the streets that remember
Mhm.
just a short time ago, I was under communism and now I get to do what I want. And so it was a real eye opener. And again, made me even more patriotic, maybe even more. What's the word I'm looking for?
Appreciative.
Maybe more appreciative of the country. Absolutely, thank you, baby. Appreciative of the country, but now I'm more concerned and have a goal of making sure that we maintain this democracy, right?
Mm.
Because some of the stuff we saw, I mean, obviously we went to Auschwitz. There's museums in pretty much every city that expose what was really going on in terms of the communist way of life, and so when I see things like what's happening in New York with this mayor candidate, and when I see those kind of things go on, and just the stealth of communism, how it just creeps in, and next thing you know, you are a communist, So it makes me even more determined to be vigilant about that going on, and also to become part of the solution, right? And
Mhm.
not just lay back and go like, oh well, somebody's going to take care of that for me.
Traveling definitely puts things into perspective. As me and my wife, we travel a lot, and yeah, you see other countries how what they're going through, and you start to realize like what kind of freedoms we have here. Like what is
Absolutely.
actually freedom? I mean, you can go to basically any gas station, grocery store, and you still have 20 different options for
Absolutely.
drinks.
Go to Costco.
Yeah, you go anywhere, but you go to other countries, even developed countries, right?
Yeah.
And you go into their gas station, there's nothing but gas.
Right.
Like, or there's you want to drink.
and only one,
Yeah.
Like, yeah,
So it's
the cheap stuff.
yeah, and you start to just take for granted what kind of freedoms that we have here, what this country gave to us,
Yeah.
what we're a part of. And
Yeah.
yeah, traveling definitely does that too. And I recommend traveling for everyone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And you see, I'm seeing at least the change in tide. I mean, recruitment levels are at an all-time high now compared to prior administration. So people are starting to see that, hey, you know what, this is a viable path that I can
Mhm.
take. When I taught high school, man, I was always selling the military.
Mm.
Kids would come up, especially the seniors that were getting ready to graduate. What are you gonna do, dude? I don't know. Hey, man, join the military, bro.
Yeah.
And I would tell them, hey, you got the benefits, you've got the pay, you've got the training. You'll still be a young man when you get out
Mhm.
if you don't choose to make it a career. So I was constantly selling the military to the younger guys. I think that tide is turning in that people are seeing that this is a viable path that I can take, and people appreciate me now. Prior administration, not so much. I think that's encouraging when I read those statistics that recruitment
Mhm.
rates are up and people are starting to join and support what we're talking about here, right? This democracy that we have. Absolutely. Because
Yeah.
it's going to be a whole new, it's a whole new war. I mean, it's not boots on the ground anymore and hand to hand combat and all that stuff. I mean, I think Vietnam was, and even Iraq and those short term wars were kind of I think are going to be passe. I think everything's going to be done in a different fashion. So we need new, fresh blood, tech savvy, that kind of thing. So it's exciting, real exciting.
I remember when I joined too, and amongst my peers, it was like, why would you join the military? That's like the bottom
Right.
option.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
people's last chances. But now, when you actually look at it, it's actually a good first option.
Absolutely.
And it really sets you up for a lifetime of success if you keep your nose clean and you just show up in the right uniform at the right time.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah. It's not
yeah.
that hard.
No, it's really not. You don't even have to think.
No.
Like-
And that's the beauty of it, kind
Yeah.
of. Yeah, no, I got so much flack for joining, man. I mean, all my friends were, long-haired, pot-smoking hippies, and they were like, "What are you talking about, dude?" And hey, it's what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And even my dad, he was still alive at the time, and I called him from Portland. I was up in Portland, and I called him from Portland. And he was out in Texas. I said, "Hey, Dad, I'm going back to San Diego, and I'm going to join the Navy." And he goes, "No, no, 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 no. Let me send you some money, and you can come out here and get it." No, Dad, that's not what I want to do.
Mhm.
I mean, I was pretty determined by that time that this is the choice.
Yeah.
Best choice I've ever made.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree. So you said you got into teaching 20 years,
Yeah.
high school in
High school.
high school in California.
Right.
I'm sure you've seen lots of changes in those 20 years.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
What kind of students that came in and what kind of, the different kind of students that came in, the administration, all of the rules that are being taught down onto you as well. What was that like?
Well, Khit, that's a great question, man, because, when I started teaching some 20 odd years ago, the profession was kind of like when I went, and maybe you went, teachers were respected and honored in a certain degree, especially in my culture, the Mexican culture. And where I taught was probably 65-70% Hispanic. So teachers were revered, and the administration was behind you, and so on and so forth. There was discipline in the classrooms. And it started swinging when kind of the wokeness started coming into society. It reflected in our culture, but then it also reflected in our educational policies, where the student was right no matter what happened. There was no discipline. There was no accountability. There was nothing. The inmates were running the prison, right?
Mhm.
And so the curriculum started changing, that kind of thing. So I think the two factors for me that I would say kind of discouraged me from, I could have gone probably more, but was number one, cell phones. When cell phones hit the culture, it was over. It was over. That's all the students wanted to do. And then wokeness came in, and when a student acted up, there was kids assaulting teachers, and well, let's go have a kumbaya moment. We'd literally get in a circle and ask little Johnny what's bothering him and everything else, and it was just like, I can't buy into this. When I resigned from teaching, COVID hit within months, and that really ruined these guys. I was still in contact with some of my colleagues, and I would ask them, "Hey, how's it going?" It's awful, man. The kids aren't logging in because they were all doing everything online. Kids aren't logging in. When they do, they black out the screen, so I don't know what they're doing. We set these poor guys back 2 or 3 years in terms of their abilities, their educational growth, and so it was a whole different thing. I tell people all the time, when I first started working, I would have done it for free if I didn't need the money. It was that much fun. It was that
Wow.
cool. It was that cool. Students were that cool. And it was just fun. And then, like I said, when all these other factors started coming in, you were herding kiddies all day long. And I mean, to begin with, the district I was in, it was overcrowded, super overcrowded. I had 42 kids in a classroom, was not unusual for me. That was pretty much my workload. So times 6. So it just wasn't fun anymore. All you were doing was disciplining all day, dealing with that aspect of it. I resigned because there were certain factors going on in the district that I don't want to talk about. There was some improprieties going on financially. And so they were buying teachers out, that were at the higher end of the pay scales. I took that golden parachute and ran. And so I don't regret the 20 years. I don't resent the 20 years. And I'm glad I got out. I really am. I pray for these teachers. They got a rough road. Because I don't think it's gotten any better. Maybe with this administration, we'll see some improvement, especially now that the Department of Education is broken up and all that stuff. So maybe we'll see some improvement in terms of the main thing in education, and I firmly believe is classroom management. If you lose classroom management, you've lost these kids. But you have to have some kind of support behind you, right? When the administration says, okay, we're going to get rid of little Johnny. He's disruptive or whatever. So until you get that back, until you get that discipline back, we're going to continue to spiral downhill.
The education system that's something I think about on probably a weekly, maybe even daily basis, because me and my wife, we're in that age now where, potentially going to start a family and stuff like that. So do we put them in the system, or do we do this? Or how should we go about raising a kid?
Yeah, that's a tough one. If I knew then what I know now, I would strongly encourage homeschooling. Yeah, it's
or
probably
at least a Christian school.
Yeah. Taught at a Christian academy. After I retired a couple of years ago, I did 2 years at a Christian academy teaching there, and it was better. It was better, but again, the culture is, they bring that into the classroom, whether it's a Christian academy or a public school. They bring the culture in there with them. And so as a parent, homeschooling, when you control that environment, right, then the outcome is going to be a little better. And the numbers show it. Numbers show that something like 99, almost 100% of homeschoolers enroll and graduate from a 4-year school. Yeah, so the number, and that's not the numbers for public. I don't know what the public school numbers are, but it's not nowhere near that high. It's a proven, viable alternative to public schools is homeschooling, and that's what I would recommend. If it's economic, I know it's an economic burden, but another alternative would be, and again, hopefully with this administration, is school choice. I think school choice would level the playing field. It would make public schools more competitive, right? If I'm losing students, then I must not be doing something right. What is it that we're not doing? What is it the parents want? Well, they want discipline in the school. They want discipline in the classroom. Okay, so let's work on that. What else? Well, they don't want this LGBT stuff. They don't want woke stuff. They don't want DEI. They don't want they don't want you to feel that America's the worst country in the world and being white is not right. They don't want all that stuff. They want the reading, writing, and arithmetic. Okay, well, let's work on that. So schools become more competitive, right? If I'm taking money out of the school system and out of the actual district and going into private schools, then you watch. It'll shape up real quick.
Yeah.
Those are the two alternatives, homeschooling and school choice.
Thanks for that. Something to look into. Yeah, it's just something that's been on my mind lately because it's just, I'm at that age.
Yeah.
Me and my wife are in that zone.
Yeah,
So-
and every parent should be concerned about that. I mean, the easy way out is, man, just drop them off at school and go to your job and hopefully they'll come out all right. But I mean, the things I've seen, and people always say, well, if you homeschool, they're not going to be socialized. Is that the socialization you want? I mean, sex, drugs, and rock and roll? Because that's what's there, man. I mean, they're talking about, something positive. I know that's a generic blanket to throw on students because there's some great kids on these public school campuses, believe me. But I'm saying it's a real strong influence, real strong. Even if a kid comes, from a church background and, joins the public school system, by 10th, 12th grade, unless they're real strong and they have a real solid family home life, they're going to be doing something, I mean, we all did, right? 10th grade was a notorious year for me.
So I want to backtrack a little bit to your transition time from, before you decided to become a teacher. And it's interesting, right? When we get out of the service and we're kind of free, we say we're free now, and you start contemplating, you do get out, you're free, but now you don't have a sense of purpose anymore because you're living for yourself.
Yeah.
And you have to go find that sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Right? Is that something you struggled with, or was it easy? It seemed like you went into teaching. I know you've been teaching for 20 years already.
Yeah, but it took me 20 years to get there.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think there's a certain caliber of people that know what they want. I mean, I know guys that were like, hey, since I was 5, I wanted to be a fireman. And they did, I wasn't that person. Like I said, I was very impulsive and had no direction. Even after the Navy, I kind of like, okay, I know I want to go to school, right? Started out as a music major, realized that unless I was going to teach, it was pretty much a waste of money people want to know, can you play, right? And not, do you have a degree? And so that was kind of like my decision. And so I switched over. Actually, I stopped going to school after that. And that's when I went into the shipyards and owning my own business and stuff. So I think in answer to your question, the transition depends. For example, if you were an engineer in the Navy, chances are pretty good you're going to be an engineer in civilian life, right? You're not going to go be a PE coach. So I think it all depends on what you did. I knew after 5 years of welding and that kind of that whole industrial scene, I knew I didn't want to do that. And ironically, after I sold my business, I went straight to the shipyards, and that's what I was doing again. So, and I did that for 10 years. So, I think you fall back on your training, right? You fall back unless you're a torpedo technician or something. I mean, what do you do? Somebody out there tell me what you do after being. Yeah, right. No, you're the guy that loads the torpedo. What do you do after that? So, or a signalman. What does signalman do? You ex-signalman out there calling, tell us what you do. But I think you fall back on your training, whatever it is, until you maybe get another one, like I did with my teaching degree. I knew I could work in the shipyard. I knew that environment. I knew that culture. So that was easy, right? That was easy for me to do. But the hard work was going back, getting my degree, and then actually being in the classroom. That was a huge transition. But yeah, and truth be told, it was all possible because of the military, right? The GI. And the benefits and those kind of things. It was all possible because of that in some major way, not a minor.
Yeah, and they gave you some structure as well.
Yeah. Besides the benefit, the money, but just that whole discipline of starting something and finishing something, right? Most people, not most, maybe, but a lot of people drop out, after a couple of years or a year and a half or a couple semesters. And so there's a discipline involved to starting, college and then actually graduating with a degree.
Yeah, like we said earlier, like it's crazy how the military can really set you up for success in ways that you don't even fathom, or
right?
You can't even think about.
Right, real subliminal.
Yeah.
I'm
like, wow. I know when I go back and I talk to my friends in Hawaii, and some of them look at me like, "You're not even the same person."
Yeah, they see it, huh?
Yeah, they're just like, "How are you? How are you this? How are you that?" All these positive things, but questioning.
Yeah,
and I'm just like, and I question myself. I'm like, where did I get this from?
Yeah.
It turns out it's part of it's from the military, but a lot of it's also from the faith, right? Being a Christian and
exactly.
Like that.
It's definitely.
And it really helps. And yeah.
No, absolutely. No, I mean, because it's ingrained in you, right?
Yeah.
Right from boot camp, first day of boot camp, man, it's ingrained in you. Cut off all that hair. Everybody's got the same hairstyle, right? So everybody's got the same hairstyle. Everybody's got the same clothes on. Nobody's got better clothes or worse clothes than you, or so it starts right from the get-go that this is what's going to be happening to you, man. You're going to be transformed.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to be transformed into this whole nother, person, and it's called a sailor or a marine, or
right.
So you're transformed into that person, and how do you shake that? You can't. You can't. That's like almost part of your DNA by then. You're that person. You might shed some of the training, you might shed some of the discipline, but I think deep down inside, the majority of that training stays with you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Absolutely.
Of course, the Christianity is a disciplined life as well.
Yeah.
And so the spiritual aspects of that combined with the training in the military, I think, is something to, remember as a good combination.
Absolutely.
For future success, definitely.
I'm in the Lord's army.
Yeah. I know if it wasn't for Christianity and for my walk and my journey in it, I would have went down on a different path because of the stresses that I dealt with.
Yeah.
And even the transition, because the transition, it seemed like you had a pretty good transition for the most part. But for myself, the transition was not easy. Maybe because I'm a Marine and you're a sailor, but the transition from being a military member of Marine to being a civilian, it was a huge spiral downhill.
Why was that? You would think you would be more disciplined. I think I've always looked at Marines as being more disciplined than sailors.
Yeah, and you're definitely right. I mean, you said it, not me, right? But,
sorry, bros.
We're definitely more disciplined in a lot of aspects, but with that Marine mentality and the way that Marines are brought up, we rely on each other more than I think a lot of the other branches.
Yeah.
And because of the things that we go through with deployments and just losing people and stuff like that. We get attached to our unit, our brotherhood. And for me, leaving that was a huge downhill spiral for me.
Wow.
And it just,
Interesting.
yeah. And I didn't really, at the time, I wasn't really vocal about it because I didn't know how to express it. But it caused a lot of hiccups in my relationship with my wife and just people around me. And it just got me to a really depressive state because of that transition. But yeah, it's like losing a brother.
Yeah.
Because everybody in the squadrons, in your unit, the people you hang out with every day, yeah, they're going to be a part of you, which I had to learn how to be okay with. But at the time, it felt like I was losing a family member.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's hard. Something you put your, being a Marine, I can't say for yourself, but for me, myself, I put a lot of time, a lot of effort, a lot of energy and just love into the Marine Corps and into my brothers. And yeah, just
You think that's common with Marines?
I think so.
Huh.
I think it's common, but a lot of Marines aren't going to admit it.
Yeah.
But I've learned that the more you're okay with it and the more you accept it, it is part of life. And, taught me a lot of things now that we're doing this podcast and we can help out friends or help out other military members transition. I was like, say, we call it freedom, right? I said earlier, we call it being out is freedom.
Yeah.
But to me, it didn't feel like freedom.
Because you love the structure.
Yeah, not the structure. I didn't.
Oh, okay.
The structure was great. It was cool. It was easy, but it was less freedom because I was trapped basically to myself. I had to think for myself.
Yeah.
I had to think for, like, if I was going to get a job, if I was going to do this, I was going to lose my friends. The main thing for me, though, was the people. Yeah. I was going to lose them and basically never see them again. Yeah, it was just
I think that's a common experience. I mean, I know when I got out, it was like, okay, now what?
Yeah.
Like I said, I always knew I was going to go to college, but it was still, now what?
Yeah.
And so, like you're saying, you're used to somebody telling you what to do, when to do it, kind of thing. And
you kind of lose a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
Because when you're in the military, you're a branch.
You
remember, you got your MOS and you're just, this is your job. You're going to do this. You're going to do this tomorrow. You're going to PT with these guys. You're going to bring these guys. This person's doing that. You got this. And then now it's like in the Marine Corps, at least from my experience, what happened to me, they just like threw you out.
Yeah.
You're trash to us now. You're not staying. And I actually got that from a lot of higher ups. So like, you're not staying in. How dare you not stay in?
Wow.
Yeah, you love the Marine Corps. You should stay in.
Yeah.
And it just kind of treated badly the transition for at least my
stigma. You felt
I got a lot of stigma from my higher ups.
Oh, for not staying in?
Yeah. Yeah, just not staying in and not giving back to the Corps or the country. And all
you feel like you're not loyal.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, I'm getting this from, I was just loyal for the last 6 years.
Yeah.
But,
and that sense of camaraderie you're talking about, I think it exists maybe with sailors out in the fleet. Because, you're stuck on board with each other for months at a time. In my experience, like I said, I'd go home every night.
Yeah.
So it was really more like, friends at work.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. So I appreciate what you're saying. And I think, like that, I missed out on that experience because I wasn't in the fleet. I'm sure it exists with sailors too. When people got out of the Navy, it was like, hey, bro, good luck, and good for you kind of thing. But, I still had friends after a while after I got out that I would see, but pretty much I don't know anybody that I was in the Navy with now. That's interesting. That's an interesting view of the whole
adjustment.
Like I said earlier, the Navy had nothing to offer me for staying, just more of the same. Oh, as a matter of fact, the only thing they were offering me was sea time because the whole time I was on those subtenders, it was considered neutral duty. So they said, oh no, you're looking at about 4 years of sea time. And my daughter was like 2 years old. And I said, no, I'm not missing out on that, man. So I did make that sacrifice. I know a lot of people did, and God bless them for it. But I wasn't prepared to do that. I wanted to be present for my family, and that was the priority.
It seems like that's your purpose now.
Yeah.
So we talked about your boot camp military experience, and even I shared a little bit about myself. But I want to know, and I'm pretty sure the listeners want to know too. You were in the military in the 70s.
Right.
You part of the California system, education system for 20 years. And now you're retired.
Right.
In 2020? 2022?
2018.
2018. Retired in 2018. But How are you doing now?
Life is amazing right now, bro.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I think this is the best. I think this is the best season of my life.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're a kid, when you're 14, 15, 16, or even younger, whatever, it's like total freedom. You stay out all night and play and all that stuff. In your 20s, you start kind of going like, okay, what do I do now? And you flounder around a bit, right? 30s, hopefully by then you're on track and you're doing something, and that's where you're going to put in your time. Right around 50, you start thinking, okay, how much longer? And you're counting the days. So anyway, I'm married to a beautiful, great wife who's 100% supportive.
It's awesome.
And, God blessed us with two career paths that allow us to be retired and live well, especially here in San Diego, which is very expensive. Like I said, we travel a lot, and, we have a great church life. And so, yeah, I don't know, man. This is the best part of my life.
It's awesome.
And I'll be 70 next Friday. Well, August 1st, rather.
What?
I'll be 70. And I didn't think I'd make it this far. And,
Well, you don't look 70, by the way.
Thank you. I look 105, right? I never thought I'd make it to 70, man. I thought for sure I'd be dead or in jail by 30. And so I thank God every day for that. I think old age, this culture tends to, look at older people as kind of like a burden, or, they're just in the way, hurry up and die, so I can have my shot at it. And so the culture really denigrates the age. And it's I think one of the last frontiers of discrimination almost, old people, ageism. But in God's perspective, it's evidence of his mercy, right? I mean, literally, I should be dead or in jail. There's no doubt in my mind that's where I should be and would have been. But it's evidence of his grace and his mercy in your life that he allows you to live another year, another day, another year, another day. And then now you're like, oh, wow, you wake up and you go like, I'm 70, man. That's crazy, So, yeah, this is a good time in my life. Things couldn't be better. Like I said, we have all the time we want and the funds to do it with. We're not wealthy by any stretch, but we have the funds to do it with, and we're not worried about the mortgage or anything like that. I think it's probably the most liberated I've been since birth, since I was 8, or whatever.
We're like big kids again. Having fun and doing what we want when we want.
That's awesome.
Exactly, yeah.
I'm excited now.
Oh, I know. Well, people ask you, oh, what do you do when you're retired? Now that you're retired, whatever I want, whenever I want. It's like, it's back to that.
Yeah, with no kids.
Yeah.
No little
Well, I
ones
do have a
around.
little bit of adult supervision right here.
She keeps.
Otherwise, I probably
blinders
would
on
be
a
in
little
jail right now.
No, you
She's your
wouldn't.
left and right lateral limits. Yeah.
No,
Yep.
No jail.
Well, Adam, I appreciate the really rich conversations already, and I can tell our listeners are getting a real sense of your journey. But here on the Barracks Life, we have a tradition that connects all the guests together across all episodes, creating an invisible thread between service members who might not ever see each other but share a common bond. Here I have a bowl of questions from previous guests, and in a moment, I'm going to ask you to draw from this bowl
Okay.
2 questions. But first, I'd like you to contribute to this tradition. What are 2 questions you'd like to ask other guests who might be sitting in that same chair you're sitting in the future?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I would say the first question would be, and I know it's speculation, but where would you see yourself now if you hadn't joined? What do you think your life would be like if you hadn't joined? And secondly, how has your experience in the military, how has and who has been affected by that in your immediate circle, right? Not in society, but in your immediate circle, how and who has benefited from your experience in the military?
Awesome. Those are some thoughtful questions, and we really appreciate it. Now, let's see what previous guests want to know from you.
Okay.
So just draw 1 card or 1 for now, and
Got it.
read it out loud.
Okay. Says today you will hit the lotto.
Who put that?
Wow. Thank you, brother, for
My fortune
for
cookie.
yeah. I think I got the winning numbers here. Okay, wow, this is a heavy one. How has decentralized command in the U.S. military empowered lower ranked officers to make decisions, and what risks do they face for wrong decisions? That's a heavy one. I wasn't aware that the command had been decentralized. I mean, I know a minute ago we were talking about chain of command,
Mhm.
and I
I
kind
think
of
I think that question's asking if we became decentralized, right?
no. It says how does decentralized? Oh, like how it would.
Yeah, how would
Oh,
it?
okay.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
Oh, it would ruin it. It would ruin it. Empower lower ranked officers to make decisions. No, it would totally ruin it. We're seeing that. We're seeing that in play with these judicial judges making decisions about the executive officer, who's our commander in chief,
Mhm.
and here's these lower courts saying, no, you can't do that. And so it's thrown an anchor on the agenda that this president has. And I think it would do the same thing. If you have a Lieutenant JG, right, saying, no, we're going to go this way, and overriding the captain or even an admiral's,
Mhm.
command, it would ruin it. I don't think you could call it a U.S. military by
Right.
then. Yeah, it would be a free for all.
Yeah, the chain of command would be gone.
Yeah. And what risks do they face for wrong decisions? Therein lies the problem. Why are you going to wait for them to make a wrong decision?
Mm.
See what I'm saying? In other words, if this Lieutenant JG says, no, we're not going to do this, I don't like his orders, and then that turns out to be a fiasco, well, what do you do then? I mean, okay, so who cares what the decisions are or what the consequences are? I think the original decision and the outcome of that is worse than what you could do to that person. So no, that would be a huge error. That would be a huge error to decentralize command, because the beauty of the military, and I think the reason it works, is because of the chain of command.
Right.
Right? There's one guy at the top, in this case, President Trump, that is held accountable, right? And then a little further down the line, you got your admirals and the captains and the lieutenants, and then petty officer, first class, and even down to the enlisted guy. The E1s. So yeah, that's the only reason it works.
Right.
Yeah, that would be a huge, huge error.
Yeah, I agree with you because the structure is why the military
Absolutely.
is the military, right? And
Exactly.
everyone in our rank gets all paid the same.
Exactly.
And as soon as you go to a different rank, we get a higher pay. But it doesn't change the fact that you need to stay within your structure and you have your guidelines and you can't go I want to say, I always thought of it because of the pay structure, right?
Yeah.
I was like, it's kind of like a communism in the military, but we abide by the rules
Yeah.
and we trust and respect each other to do their part.
Right.
And if that's gone, we don't even have a military.
It's not a military. And kind of to add what you're saying, I don't know if it's communist. I think the military, and I've always said this, the military is the most equal opportunity situation you want to be in, right? To go from E1 to E2, you know what you got to do. E2 to E3, you know what you got. There's certain standards, there's certain tests you have to take, a qualification you have to meet. So every step on the way up, and nobody's limited to not being able to take that next step, right? Nobody's just saying you can't go from E5 to E6.
Yeah, because of XYZ.
Yeah, because
Unless you did
of your
something
skin
wrong.
color.
Yeah.
Because, nobody's saying that. They're saying take this test, pass this qualification, and here's your extra stripe, right? And then the pay, same thing. Like you've got this guy who's working and this guy who's not maybe pulling his load, but you're still going to get paid the same. Is there a path for complaining about that guy or taking care of that situation? There might be, but the same thing, just you do you and take care of yourself and handle your business, and hopefully everything will work out. That guy will eventually be found out, So no, I think it's the most equal opportunity program that there is.
Yeah.
Because it's all set out, man. There's no nepotism, that's the colonel's uncle, There's no nepotism, there's racism, but it doesn't affect your advancement or your possibilities. It just affects the day in, day out, tension. But again, I'm hoping that that's not the case anymore. Maybe, like I said, back in the 70s. But so yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's a beautiful program. Beautiful program.
All right, thank you for the answer for your question 1.
Another one. Here we go. This one didn't come with a cookie. How smoothly did they reintegrate into civilian life, and how did military service affect their personal growth and personality. I think we kind of covered that.
Mhm.
I had a real easy reintegration into civilian life. Obviously, we talked about my military service affecting my personal growth in terms of accountability, discipline, and those kind of things. And then the last one, we didn't. I don't know if we talked about personality, but it affected my personality, and maybe that falls under the whole patriotic umbrella. When I said that, prior to going in the military, my personality was very rebellious,
Mhm.
anti-American to a certain degree. And so my personality changed in that I saw that this was a country worth standing up for, a country worth serving for. I'm a firm believer in most countries have an obligatory service, right? Yeah,
Mhm.
2 years minimum in most countries. I think we should have that. You'd get some of these guys that are marching down the street right now. Maybe they'd see it a whole different light, and not have to wait till they're 30 or 40. They say that a liberal becomes a conservative when somebody breaks into their house.
Yeah.
So once they experience that situation, then maybe their attitudes have changed. So that's how it changed my personality. I think we talked about that the
Mhm.
whole loving this country more than I think I ever have. I mean, obviously I got choked up. I still cry when they say raise the flag and say the Star Spangled Banner and all that stuff. And so it's just it was a real life changer for me.
Those questions and your answers will become part of a growing collection, creating connection between service members who might never meet but share a common bond. Thank you for contributing to the ongoing conversation.
My pleasure, my honor, Khit.
And as we wrap things up together, I keep thinking how your story carries wisdom that others might use, whether it's someone who's serving, someone thinking about joining,
Mm,
or someone who's been out for years like yourself.
yeah.
What would you like to share with those walking in that similar path?
That's a great question, Kid. And my prayer and my hope would be that this program does do that, right? Does do that for those thinking about joining. Again, like I said, I could not recruit stronger than if I was getting paid for it. It's just, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer, especially if you don't come from a wealthy family or a solid family who's going to put you through 4 years of college and tolerate you living in the basement. For those of you that are in the military right now, thank you for your service. Realize that whatever's going on in your situation, wherever you're at, to stay positive, right? That this is going to be for your own good. You're going to be a better person for it, and to stay with it. I mean, you really have no choice but make the best of what you're in for. And again, thank you for your service. It's huge sacrifice. Kit and I know that. And then for those of you that are out and enjoying your life post military, you know what you got, man. You know what you got, especially if if you availed yourself of the benefits and those kind of things. You couldn't do better. You couldn't do better. Even if you went in at 18 and got out at 42 or so, 20 years in, you're still a young man or a young woman. Those of you who are out, make the best of your post military experience. Yeah.
That's beautifully said, Adam. We really appreciate that as well. And I'm sure the listeners will like that.
Thank you, bro.
Before we completely wrap things up, we've been honored to have you here.
It's an honor to be here.
It's a pleasure, man. I mean, knowing somebody who's served in such a dangerous time, hard time, and then even with your life experience as well, and just spreading some of your wisdom. I mean, even for myself personally, thank you.
Thank you
for that. If you had one final message about the military or about the service or just in life in general to anyone who's listening out there, what would that be?
Wow, that's an easy one, right? That's an easy one. Trying to live this life without God in your life, you're just asking for an uphill battle, you know? I don't care how much money you have in the bank, how good looking you are, and all that stuff. The worst day being a Christian is better than the best day being a non-Christian. So find God, find the Lord, and avail yourself of all that He has. I mean, we were sitting here talking about benefits and experience and life changing and all that stuff. The best one is experiencing Christ and His forgiveness and His mercy, and then the other benefits: the peace, the joy, the love, the purpose. Right? He gives you a purpose. He gives you a path to follow. And so, trying to do this, I don't know how I could do this life without that. I don't think I would have made it this far because there's that discipline and the correction that comes with being a follower of Christ that only a military person would know, right? because he's our supreme commander. And that's my prayer. Take an inventory of who you are and where you're at. And he says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. And if you open the door, I'll come in and sup with you. So listen for that knock. Listen for that knock. If you hear it, open it up. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Adam, for
Thank you,
sharing
bro.
your stories. And to our listeners, remember that every service member's journey is unique, yet together they form a rich tapestry of military life. Join us next week for another compelling story from the Barracks Life. Until then, this is Khit Lovan reminding you that where boots hit the deck, stories take flight.